Welcome back to the Explainer. So, having looked at the different forms of wages inside a single nation, we're now ready to elevate our analysis. We're going to zoom out to the international stage with Chapter 22 of Marx's Capital. This is where the law of value gets modified for the world market, and it's absolutely crucial for understanding the complex dynamics of global competition.
So here's our game plan. We'll start with a really interesting global wage puzzle. Then we'll define the key concepts we need to solve it: value, intensity, and productivity. After that, we'll see how this all clicks into place and leads us directly into our next big topic, the accumulation of capital.
Okay, let's dive right in with the central paradox that this chapter really sets out to resolve.
So, here's the puzzle. How is it possible that a nation with high wages can actually produce goods that are cheaper than those from a nation with low wages? I mean, conventionally, you'd think higher wages automatically mean higher prices. But in the real world, on the global market, the opposite is often true. Understanding the mechanics of this is really central to getting a grip on international capitalism.
Now, the solution to this whole puzzle lies in understanding how the law of value gets modified when we stop looking at just one country and apply it to the entire world market. Let's just do a quick refresher. Remember the basic law of value, right? A commodity's value is determined by the average socially necessary labor time it takes to produce it. That's our starting point, our baseline.
But on the world market, this law gets a crucial twist. As Marx puts it, more productive national labor is treated as more intense labor. This little equation right here, this is the conceptual key to his entire argument. It means the global market doesn't treat an hour of labor from every country as equal.
Okay, so to really unpack that quote, we have to get super precise about two different terms, productivity and intensity. They're not the same thing. First up, productivity. This is all about technical efficiency. It's a measure of the quantity of goods, or use values, that you can produce in a set amount of time. So higher productivity simply means you're making more physical stuff per hour.
Intensity, on the other hand, is different. It measures the expenditure of labor power in a given time. And according to Marx's framework, a more intense hour of labor actually creates a greater amount of new value than a less intense hour. It's about how hard the labor is working, not just how much it's producing.
And their effects are totally distinct. Higher productivity lowers the value of each individual item because you're spreading the same amount of total value across more units. But higher intensity, that increases the total new value created per hour. It makes the entire pie of value bigger, which can then be split between wages and surplus value.
So this brings us right back to Marx's big modification. The world market essentially equates a nation's productivity with its labor's intensity. An hour of labor in a highly productive country functions as if it were an hour of more intense labor. It creates more value than an hour of less productive labor, regardless of how much effort the individual worker is putting in.
Okay, now that we have these conceptual tools sharpened, we can finally go back and resolve that initial paradox.
And here's the solution, step by step. First, a nation's higher productivity lowers the price of each individual good. We got that. But second, on the world market, that same productivity gets counted as higher intensity, which means it creates more total value per day. And since that pool of value is larger, it allows for higher absolute wages, even while the price per unit is falling. And what's the result? Cheaper goods and higher wages can exist at the same time.
Let's look at the numbers, because this really makes it clear. You've got country A, our high productivity nation, and country B. They both work a 12-hour day, but country A produces twice as many units, 24 to B's 12. Because its labor is treated as more intense, it creates more total value, 18 shillings versus B's 12. So what happens? Country A's price per unit is lower, only 0.75 shillings, while B's is a full shilling. So the goods are cheaper. And yet, because they created more total value, they can sustain a higher daily wage, 9 shillings versus 6. The paradox is solved, right there in the numbers.
Now, this mechanism isn't just a neat trick for explaining wages. It's actually the very engine of capital accumulation on a global scale. You see, this whole dynamic isn't static. It's the driving force of global competition. The ability to create more value through higher productivity gives capitalists this relentless incentive to revolutionize their technology, to push for an advantage on the world market, and to expand their capital. And with that, our investigation into wages is pretty much complete. We've seen how surplus value is produced and how it's disguised by the wage form. This analysis of how value is created globally really sets the stage for understanding capital's ultimate drive, its own self-expansion and accumulation.
So we'll leave you with this question to think about. What are the consequences of a system that's driven by this relentless competitive engine of accumulation? We'll start to answer that in our very next explainer, as we dive into Part 7 of Capital, the accumulation of capital.